Hi ladies and gentlemen, today's April 20th, and no, we're not at the Bundy Ranch today. We actually left there after the party, or before the party ended the barbecue on Friday night, so that we could come back and take care of some things like this. And what we're going to do here is talk a little bit about the money situation that surrounds this entire thing, this land problem, mostly in the western states, of course, and particularly here in Nevada and the entire Bundy Ranch range war episode. So Brand's studied this quite a bit, and I think he's prepared to talk about it. You can get this information anywhere if you look for it, so I don't think we're going to be giving you anything new, but what we are doing is just kind of emphasizing that this is really what it's about. Remember, the national debt is huge. China has an awful lot of that money that they have actually purchased, and they don't want that money to go bad, or they want collateral, and so that collateral is these large swaths of land around the western United States and elsewhere, I suppose, but that's kind of what we're seeing. So Brand's going to explain that, and afterwards I'm going to show you some pictures of some facilities that we saw north of Vegas. I've heard about them being there. This is the first time I've actually seen them. And the Southern Nevada Desert Correctional Center is there, and then they have the other prison across the street. And where are the inmates for those institutions? They couldn't fill them up with all the criminals in Nevada, so these things have got to be for something else, at least the larger one. And of course, people who become dissidents to this government and their unlawful, unconstitutional acts to steal your heritage and your inheritance, if you put up too much of a fight, or if you don't get Obamacare, or who knows what else that they can throw at us, they're going to put you in one of these facilities. So we'll show you what that looks like. There's another one in Arizona. If you take I-10, it's about, probably about 30-40 miles west of Phoenix, and it cuts down. It's a road, I forget exactly what it is now. It cuts through to 8 so that you can avoid Phoenix if you want. And right on that road is an obvious facility, very similar to this one, not quite as large as this one in Nevada, but substantial and pretty much vacant. So those are the kind of things we're going to talk about here. Here's Brandon to talk about this monetary situation.
I have a message that I really consider the most important message of our time. I've been doing a lot of thinking about how we're vulnerable as a nation and as a people. And it's clear to me that we have an Achilles heel that we've got to get control over, and that is a monetary system, because right now the monetary system that this country operates under can be jerked out from underneath us at any moment's notice. I have here a dollar bill, and if you can't see it real clearly, I'm sure you can go just get a dollar bill and go look at it. And if you'll look, right across the top, it has Federal Reserve Note. And it's very, very important to understand what they're saying here. And I'll help you out. What they're saying here is they own that paper that you might have in your possession. It's not yours. That's why from time to time in this country you've seen people that try to make a withdrawal from the bank and they don't allow them, or they'll have certain days that you can or cannot make withdrawals, or they'll limit the dollar amount that you can make a withdrawal. And that should be all the evidence you need to know that you don't own that paper. What you do own is what you can exchange it for. And that's why it's also called, and most properly, a meeting of exchange of goods and services. The fact that we don't own that as a people or as a nation, it means it can be taken from us at any time, and we literally be left without a monetary system. Well, this will cause all kinds of chaos. It'll cause all kinds of problems. there is a solution, a very, very simple solution to this. We can go ahead and continue to use this monetary system, but we will have to nationalize it. We will have to go and take possession of, as a country, as a people, as a nation, take possession of those banks that are distributing this monetary system. And it can be controlled. You know, Karen Hudis, which I ascribe to her quite a bit, and she's a wonderful lady from what I can tell, but there's one thing that she's saying which I consider to be very dangerous. I consider it to be disinformation. And she keeps harping on the fact that we got to get control of this collateralized account, this gold, in order to make this all work. Here's why I disagree with that. One is just isn't true, because true production comes from human beings. And that is true wealth. The roof over your head, your refrigerator, the food in the refrigerator, a warm bed, an air conditioning home, or whatever. That's true wealth. I mean, you can't do that with gold and silver. You can't do that with any precious metal. It does have an intrinsic value, but you can't eat it, okay? You can't sleep on it and be comfortable. There's a whole lot of things that it's not good for. All true wealth comes from human production. So as far as a monetary system, we just want a medium of exchange of goods and services to keep this technology flowing, to keep this production flowing. And so I want you to get this information out to your governors, your sheriffs, because right now even the monetary system that we are operating under is a debt system, okay? And it's fraud. Just like the paper money that I just showed you, it said $1. Well, the strict definition of a dollar is 1 ounce of silver. So that is what is known as counterfeit. You have fit money, which is by the Constitution was gold and silver. In fact, it says no state shall allow any tender save it be gold and silver. That was fit money. Money that is not fit is counter to fit money or counterfeit money. All paper money is actually counterfeit, whether it's fiat money or specie money. It's all actually counterfeit. However, as as our economy has evolved, our nation has evolved, we became streamlined, and I think this is one reason why people are so readily acceptable to fiat and specie money, because it gets a little cumbersome to be carrying around 100 silver dollars in your pocket. And that's why I agree with Ron Paul that we need competing currencies. At this time, we're very, very vulnerable in this respect that I already said. This whole monetary system can be jerked out from underneath us. And then, there is a possibility, but I don't know how probable it is, that if everybody just went and did what they normally do without a monetary system, in theory at least, this is applicable, that you really don't need any medium of exchange if every human being that has operated under a monetary system just didn't change anything. Just did the same thing. Your delivery man still delivers, the producer still produce, the repair man still goes out and repairs. And that's a good and very important theory to understand, just so that you can see that we really don't need this international banking system to dictate anything to us. Our monetary system is a Ponzi scheme. And in all Ponzi schemes, the wealth, not just the money, but the entire wealth always ends up at the top of that pyramid or at the top of that Ponzi scheme. And when we have these banksters do the things that they did with these bailouts, which I'm going to digress a little bit here, because Roy wanted me to talk about what they had done with when the economy collapsed in 2008. They had actually got certain provisions in place. I'm not going to call them laws. They got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act, which allowed the investment bankers to get involved in domestic housing. Well, they actually took out an insurance which was guaranteed by the American taxpayer, so that if this thing ever collapsed, they were still going to be compensated. Now, you think about that. There were some lawsuits that were taking place that demanded that everybody could get a loan practically, even non-qualifiers, and they called that the subprime loans. And that went through, and there was a part to that, there was a concession made that if these things went bad, okay, that the banks were going to always be reimbursed. Well, interesting enough, this scheme was sophisticated enough that when it was all done, the bankers got 3 times the original mortgage, and they put that in there. This was incentive to crash the system. Think about that. You know, these people that we talk about, the Illuminati, the Luciferians, the banksters, they're always way ahead of everybody, and unfortunately they're way ahead of Congress, they're way ahead of the Senate, and they presented this, they lobbied for this, which anymore a lobbyist is nothing but to put our elected officials in their back pocket. That's all it is, okay? And that's one reason we got to get big money out of politics. So they set up this situation that had incentive to collapse the economy. Well, now, you know, this boom and bust cycle, does it control the supply of money? It also got to do is push a button, you know. And this country is so rich in natural resources and technology and a workforce that when you put a whole lot of money out there, we can, you know, we can grow at an incredible rate. We can grow our economy. We can, you know, and I'm not saying that's completely healthy. We got to grow at a healthy rate. But this is what they did. They know that people, that businesses will gear up. They will invest. Investors all over the world at that time were investing here in Las Vegas, in this valley here in Las Vegas, because it was booming, okay? Now, what happens when you cut off the money supply? Oh, wow. Well, you know, there's a whole lot of loans out there that are dependent upon production by companies, not just big companies, but companies like I owned at my time. I'd geared up. I bought a lot of service vehicles, and we were trying to supply a service to the valley in new construction and repairs. Well, I had all of these loans and these vehicles and other things. You know, my rent. I had three offices in the valley. I had a big payroll, and it's all dependent upon this thing just going and going and going. See, so they get us all overextended as part of the plan. Get everybody overextended. You have young people for once in their life, they can go out there and they're in a position to live the American dream. They can go get a loan. It's very easy. These subprime loans to go get. They got a job. They're making a living. They got children, and they're totally dependent upon that. And I would like to interject one other thing here, which I found very, very interesting, is, you know, we had this timeline of when the economy collapsed. And remember when they were blaming it all on the subprime loans? And by inference, all these young people, and they seem to target minorities especially, that they were bums. They just quit paying their bills. They just quit paying their mortgage, and they collapsed the whole thing. Folks, look at the timeline. In August of 2008, Greenspan got on TV, national TV, and said, "Oh, we got this bubble, okay, and it's going to burst." Well, what they did about it is cut off the money supply, and then it burst, okay? And so, who's the first person to get laid off? When you take the money supply, you cripple companies doing new business, new housing starts, all kinds of things, building new vehicles. And who's the first ones to get laid off when they don't have the money to keep this thing going? It's the young people. It's the young people with the subprime loans.
The young and the very old.
Yeah, and then for them to come back and think how insidious that is. We're talking about banksters that got completely bailed out at 3 times their original mortgage, and they're out there pointing their finger at these young people. Every one of my children, okay, 4 children, at that time lost their homes. Okay? So, I can speak with some authority. I saw, you know how that makes a parent feel to see your hard-working children all of a sudden lose everything?
And if I can interject here too, Brand, they were forcing people, and the way they were forcing them is by convincing them that they needed to go this way to accept subprime loans, even if they could qualify for a conventional loan. I know a lady that happened to. They kept trying to push this subprime loan on her, and she said, "No, I qualify for the conventional. I want that. I don't want the supply. I don't want a surprise down the road." And they tried to force her to do it. They even called her real estate agent and said, "Look, you know, you got to convince her to do this." Finally, she said, "You know what? If they're going to keep this up, the deal's off." And then they went ahead and sold the home with a conventional loan. So this was pushed from everybody, from the president on down.
The point of this whole thing, what we're trying to make here, is to show how vulnerable that we are to a foreign entity controlling our monetary supply. We will always be in this position. We will never be able to pay off a national debt. There will always be boom and bust, and you know they're always going to foreclose, repossess, which I consider just
It's a type of theft.
yeah, it's just a type of theft. They just, you know, the person who has that sweat equity, that worked so hard to come up with that down payment, to do the improvements on that house, he has the investment. These guys had none. They actually manufactured this loan out of thin air. It's just a computer entry. Okay, they never put up any collateral. They didn't put in anything. But when we go through this bust cycle, who gets the true value? Who gets the true real estate? They do. It's just it's a sophisticated way of theft. But that is our Achilles heel at this time. There's a very simple remedy. Because these people have been operating from fraud and been robbing us for a long time, we need to take it back and nationalize those banks and put it under a good functional program.
Congress.
Congress are elected officials.
To
you know, you're supposed to have taxation with representation, and we'll maintain a 3%, because historically, before they took it over, we were always somewhere between 3% inflation and deflation. That's not hard to do. That's very, very easy to do. Loans will be made to qualifying people who qualify for loans, okay? And those loans will never be retired. Okay, they're just going to go into a trust for the American people that will be redistributed within that 3% inflation and deflation at the right time. And so, folks, until we get control of our monetary system, these guys are always going to have financial control over us. We're always going to be vulnerable. Let's get out, let's get to the governors, and let's scream loud and hard until we take those banking institutions over.
I want you to tie in what you just said to what happened to the Bundys and this whole thing with the national debt, trying to pay the Chinese back with this land swath over here, taking the inheritance of the American people away from them. If you could tie in why that's so important.
It's all based upon the petrodollar and the fact that America has been forced to outsource so many of its industries. We are crippled in our abilities to manufacture. So we have to be in this situation because of this. They forced us into this international system. Okay, the support or the basis of that international system is the world's reserve currency, which is the U.S. dollar. The bankers of the world have put this on the rest of the world, and as long as the rest of the world buys their gas and oil with U.S. dollars, it's always going to maintain that value. The moment they don't have to do that, that dollar is going to collapse it because you can't buy anything internationally with it. It will no longer be honored. Well, there's a whole lot of tangents to this, but let me say for this particular thing, you have Russia, you have China, Japan, there's a country in South America and a few others who have dropped the U.S. dollar. Brazil. And even prior to that, you had Libya, you had Syria, you had Iraq.
Isn't it interesting? That's where we went to war with people.
Yeah, that's what it was all about. We went to war with them to force them off the gold standard because it was devaluing the petrodollar, which is the U.S. dollar, which, all these offshore bank accounts by your elitists in this country, like the Clintons and there's a whole pile of them. I always like mentioning the Clintons, but like I've heard that Hillary Clinton's got like $100 million just herself in an offshore account. Well, when the petrodollar collapses and the rest of the world will not honor it no longer, and it's lost all of its buying power in the United States because there's nothing to purchase. The industries have taken such a dive, then that money becomes worthless also. So now I'm going to tie this into what's happened there at the Bundy Ranch. These elitists are going to do everything they can to protect themselves. China has something like $2 trillion of our currency. And yet then they also got this huge collateralized gold account, which from what I understand, is 750,000 tons of gold. So you got Barack Obama and you got Harry Reid, people like that, who are trying to maintain their power structure, maintain their wealth, and thereby maintaining their power structure. This was meant to be collateral, okay, for the Chinese, and because we don't really have that much collateral that these people can access, that Harry Reid types can actually access. They have twisted the laws of the West. They have twisted the laws of our local governments to such a point is that they are making federal claims over all these lands, that they in fact own them. And the furthest thing from the truth for anybody that looks into the Nevada Constitution or the Constitution of the United States, by no stretch of the imagination can you get there. In fact, there's a federal judge that has just come out and said that they have committed a conspiracy of vast proportion in order to secure these lands for their greedy purposes. So you have the 600,000 acres out there that has got vast mineral wealth, vast underwater. There's a tremendous amount of water there, and you always got to have water for whatever you want to do. This was exactly that. They wanted to prop up their own personal bank accounts because the petrodollar is collapsing, the U.S. dollar is collapsing, and by doing this, it could actually get currencies or money from the Chinese in the yuan or gold. Okay, so they have committed treason in so many ways. This is just another step of treason, and so if you look at it like this as just greed, then you really know you know what you're dealing with, and they were willing to sacrifice any number of lives for their greedy purposes. Just a little follow-up on what I was saying earlier about Karen Hudes and this gold that she's trying to secure with some other government people as a basis, or to back a currency for the United States. I don't believe it's going to happen. I really don't, and I don't like the idea of her spreading this, what I call disinformation, that we've got to have that gold. Because if we sit around waiting for that, we're in real trouble. But what we need to have is the governors, and to come out and say, okay, we talked to our sheriffs, we're going to nationalize the banks, all right? We're going to nationalize the printing presses, these mints, if you will, and we're kicking the world bankers out. We're going to take over our own monetary system. It will be a debt-free system. We're going to cancel the national debt. We will honor the legitimate part of that, such what we call entitlements, which I don't think is very fair to say against the people that are on Social Security. I'm just using their terminology. We need to honor things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, things of that nature. The rest of it, for the most part, cancel it. It's all fraud.
Okay, now just a quick look at these facilities. We also mentioned in that last video when we did the rituals that we saw armored vehicles out there, not on trains, but in a deployable type of formation. And there were about 50 of them. Now, there is a military installation out there. It's a drone facility. But these vehicles were not performing security for this installation. This was something else entirely. Could it have been a training exercise or whatever? Oh, possibly. But the point is that they're there. Okay? Don't have pictures of that with this particular camera. There's no way I could get the magnification I would have needed to really make the impact that I wanted to. Okay, so basically this entire thing with the Bundys is about stealing your inheritance as Americans to ensure a few of the elite that they have money in their bank accounts, and they're willing to commit treason to do it. They're making these deals with the Chinese, and the international banking system really is a problem. So let's look at this facility here in southern Nevada and realize that these aren't for your run-of-the-mill criminals. That this particular facility is for good, hardworking, decent, honest Americans who finally find out that their government has been stealing from them and ruining their liberties. The government can't have you complaining about that. And this is where they want you to end up. Okay, I've taken still pictures of these immense places out here. The Desert Correctional Center, I believe is what it's called, is right there, and I've taken some stills of that. Now there we notice that there are BLM vehicles and other type of vehicles as well parked there. Not quite armored type, but pretty sophisticated, and I'm not sure what to make of that. Now over here, this has all the signs that this is a large FEMA camp type facility. We don't need a prison that big here, not when we've got all the others, so this is definitely for something else, no doubt about it. No doubt whatsoever. There are at least 7 guard towers there. They have, as you can see, water tanks for all of that, and it's definitely a lot larger than anything else around here. It could probably house, I'm just guessing, probably 20,000, 30,000 people, maybe more, maybe 50,000, I don't know. And then of course you have again the correctional center down here, which is about the size, I guess that's what that is. Now out over to the west here is an area where we saw those armored vehicles, and they're off the road quite a ways, but they're not parked. They're basically deployed, and apparently they run drones from there. This is weird. No use of tobacco products beyond this point. Now that's odd. This is that facility. I hope they don't come and take our camera away from us. But
look at the wire.
Yeah, the wires are
the razor wires bent in. It's not bent out.
Yeah.
Yep, High Desert State Prison is what they're calling it.
That's what they're calling it, but you can bet this thing is way too big to that. Okay, we've got to turn around. That's all we wanted to do, was just get a picture of this. Okay.
And there's hardly any vehicles here.
This is no prison of regular type. This is no regular type prison. No way. No way.